Myself and my wife closed on a three-bedroom condo at the Jersey Shore, brand new build. And although it was nice and it was something that we could use, the building turned out to be a disaster in terms of the build grade was not very good, and dealing with a new build condominium, there was just many facets that just went into that just were not spectacular for my family, although we liked having somewhere to go. So we sold that and 1031 exchanged into two separate properties.
Hi, I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Grace.
And you're listening to our dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and we're back with our Friday interview episodes where we get to talk to other short-term rental investors willing to share the ups, downs, and everything in between on their journey. And today we've got Adam Fiala. So, Adam, appreciate you joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Shawn. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Adam, I always like to start. You know, the outline is pretty much the same with these, but I always like to go back a little bit. We want to talk about your journey in short-term rental investing, all the lessons learned along that journey, but also let's go back to the beginning about, where you're from, what pays the bills, what got you ultimately interested in real estate investing and then vacation home investing.
Cool. Yeah. So from New York, about a half hour north of Manhattan, suburbs. And I run a family-owned preschool that my parents started in like 1975 or something. So that's what pays the bills. Yeah. And my father was always interested in real estate, and it just naturally became interested in it. Also, bought an office building with my brother and sister. I think we're on I think we're starting year number 9. With that.
Is that where the preschool is operated out of, or totally separate?
No, just a separate property. My father had a single family home that he bought in 1978 or something, and ended up myself, my brother and sister were operating it because he just was phasing out of the property thing. And we did a 1031 exchange and bought an office building. That's just purely rental, which is good. It's an in-town building. It's pretty easy to operate, right? Like it has all regular tenants, pretty much people who, there's a chiropractor, there's a dentist, and then there's a few people who during pandemic don't want to travel to Manhattan anymore. So they grabbed an in-town office close to home. So it's been good.
Good. Yeah. And I always tell people that I love real estate. I love it in general. Every asset class has pros and cons. So I'm always interested because we find that pretty regularly that, people will invest in multiple asset classes. And so it's fun to hear, that sounds like that got you kind of started in your real estate investing journey. And then, what led you to the short-term rental side of it?
So in 2021, March of 2021, myself and my wife closed on a three-bedroom condo at the Jersey Shore, a brand new build. Right. And although it was nice and it was something that we could use, the building turned out to be a disaster in terms of the build grade was not very good, and dealing with a new build condominium, there was just many facets that just went into that just were not spectacular for my family, although we liked having somewhere to go. Yeah. So we sold that and 1031 exchanged into two separate properties. Prior to that too, so that was 2021. In September of 2022 is when I joined Vodacy, and we had bought a second property, condo in Myrtle Beach, oceanfront. Then we sold the condo at the Jersey Shore and 1031 into a house in Myrtle Beach because we had boots on the ground there already, right? And a townhouse in Miramar Beach on the Gulf Coast. Yeah.
Nice. So. And so you said the first one you said was I think you mentioned that it was a town. I think you said the townhome in Myrtle Beach. So the first one was a condo in Miramar. It was a condo in Myrtle Beach, right?
Yeah, so first was a condo
in Myrtle Beach. Yeah,
correct. Right. Yeah. Like we took a condo at Jersey Shore, and at the same time we bought a Myrtle Beach condo, oceanfront, and then we went from there.
Okay. And then how far apart were those two acquisitions? Like I'd like to talk about how they launched and how we did that, but how far apart were those two, and then ultimately the third one?
Okay, gotcha. So the Jersey Shore one was March of 2021, and the the Myrtle Beach condo was September or October of 2022.
Okay.
And then in September of 23, we wrapped up the 1031 exchange and did Miramar and Myrtle Beach. I think maybe one was September, one was October,
Uh,
somewhere right around there.
yeah. So the first one was, and the second and third were about a year apart. Second and third were pretty simultaneous as part of that 1031, and they were
Correct.
about a year apart from the first one. So you
Correct.
had so out, and I'm saying the first one that you ultimately you have right now, the three in your portfolio. I'm kind of ignoring the Jersey Shore because you sold it. But
Mhm.
so let's talk a little bit about that first one, the launch. You were just focusing on the one property. It's a condo, Myrtle Beach. Tell me a little bit about how that went.
So it went well. We used Katie and Brian from O to O. It's an oceanfront building, so the views are spectacular. It's in actually a condo tel, which is it's a hotel, but
Yeah,
people own specific units. So everything in the hotel, pretty much anything that you see advertised, they all kind of look the same, like real cookie cutter. So we
yeah.
went in there, didn't really change much, just added some decor, changed some lighting, changed some fans, and really put up a really, really good listing and hit the ground running.
Nice. And so, on a condo tel, those of you that are listening, a condo tel is basically a hotel that they sell units in, and individual owners own those units. Now, sometimes the drawbacks with condo tels are they have really heavy, like you can't do a lot. You're not allowed to actually go in and put your own furnishings in and everything else. They have to look, sometimes they say they have to look like all the units have to look exactly like a hotel room, right? And other times they allow you to go in and put your custom artwork in, your accessories, do some of that stuff. And so you're in a condo tel, Adam, that allowed you to do that.
Correct.
How about management? Because a lot of condo tels require you to use their own management, and a lot of times they charge 50 or 60%, and it just doesn't work, right? And so, but there are exceptions to that. So tell me a little bit about management on the condo tel.
Right. Yeah, they were looking for 40%, but did not. It was not a requirement. And I'm not sure in Myrtle Beach if they're allowed legally to require it. I think there was some kind of regulation that went in. Yeah, 50%, it just doesn't work.
Right.
I'm comfortable managing on my own with prior real estate experience, hired a really good cleaner, grabbed a really good handyman, all through referrals from my real estate agent. Actually, I think the cleaner I found online, not through referral, but yeah, I mean, and it's been okay. Anything that happens, right, that needs to get taken care of, I pick up the phone and I make a phone call.
Right.
It's really not. People think that when you're going into management, you have to be plunging toilets and going in there and cleaning, and we source all that out. I'm in New York. The
Yeah.
property's in Myrtle Beach, but you really have to have a good team for sure.
Yeah, that's the key, I believe, with self management is having the really good boots on the ground team, right? Because with somebody that you can call if something happens, they can get over there. A really good cleaner, is probably the most important, to make sure that property's set up and delivered. And they do more than clean, right? You're a good cleaning crew when you're self managing. They're also they're getting that property set up a lot of times, getting the lights turned on, the beds turned down, everything ready for that next guest to come in, not just clean up after the previous guest. And so having a good team makes that self-management, that like you said, you're in New York, the properties in Myrtle Beach allows you to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely, like you said, it's more than just cleaning. They stage the property every time so that when new guests come in, it looks exactly like the photos that we've taken and put up on the listing. And that's real
Yep.
important too, right? People don't want to come in and see something that they haven't paid for. So
Exactly. And so, I mean, and one of the benefits of a condo complex, but even a condo tel like this is they've got really good amenities, right? Typically, their location proximity is usually right on the beach. In this case, they're usually proximity is great as well as the amenities that they have that the guests can use, which is a big draw.
yeah, for sure. This particular one has an indoor water park. So, and we have not only the indoor water park, we're oceanfront, right? So my windows go ceiling to floor. The views are ridiculous, but because you have the water park, I go all year long,
Yeah.
right? So January and February, I'm getting what December, January, February, but it'll start to die down rate wise, probably middle of December. Then you get Christmas and um, so yeah, you get great amenities, pool, indoor water park. But one thing you don't get is some people don't understand. Guests come in and they want extra towels, and they call down to the front desk, and that's not how it works, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I think they've gotten better, the front desk, at letting people know that when they check in, because people check in, they have to sign a property waiver, they get a pass for parking, and they let them know, hey, just to let you know, if you need anything, make sure you reach out to Adam. He's your host, not us. When I first started, yeah, it was not like that. People were just
Yeah.
going down, and then they're messaging me. So I had to explain it then. So I went and I was proactive, and I just put in the listing, right? Like, please make sure that you understand you're staying in a condo hotel. If you need something, please feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Happy to help, always.
Yeah. And I think that this will be a good conversation, because I think, there's always people that have the question of, should I go condo tells, even a different situation, and then, or single family home, townhome, and you own a different ones, right? You own single family, you own condo, you own townhome. And so as we, I'm sure that you're recognizing there's pros and cons to all of them, right? There's pros and cons to owning all of them. And we'll go through that as we're talking about the condo tail. Like we said, the pros are proximity is usually fantastic. The amenities are awesome. The cons are that you have to do something to stand out, because there's a lot of other people that have the exact same unit. So you've done some things with accessorizing and artwork and bringing it to life a little bit, updating that, the inside, not necessarily the layout, but the inside makes a big difference. The drawbacks sometimes are the HOA fees, but that can also be something that's nice, right? Because things are taken care of that you don't have to worry about. But the HOA fees are they're going to be higher, right? They're going to cut into your cash flow to have access to all those amenities and proximity and insurance costs and everything else. But are there any other, as we kind of navigate the pros and cons of each, because I'd love this conversation to kind of go through that, is the pros and cons of each property type. Or is there anything else that you would say that you like or dislike about this type of property?
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you said, the HOA fees, they are high. It includes my electric. It includes my cable for the guests. The insurance is included, including the HO6, which is the inside insurance, is included. So
Yeah.
it really just depends in terms of the fees, right? Definitely important to find out what they're covering and what they're not.
Right.
Also, what I like about the condo hotel is it seems to be, and I haven't met any other owners there, that every single person, every unit in there is a rental.
Yeah.
Everything. As
Yeah.
opposed to my townhouse in Miramar Beach, it's 9 units, and I'm dealing with neighbors, right? And
Right.
everyone seems to be okay with it's a rental community, right? Like everyone in
Right.
Destin and Miramar Beach are renting. So they're used to renters coming in, but there's communication with your neighbors, which is fine, right? Like
Yeah.
most of the time it's a parking issue, or usually not noise. I try to do a really good job of the screening. My next door neighbor directly next to me happens to be a really awesome person. So yeah, you have to know who your neighbors are going in,
Yeah.
right? When you're dealing with a townhouse or even a single family property, right?
Right. So let's talk about the townhouse while we're on that topic. So that's townhouse, Miramar Beach. How far from let's talk about proximity, size, and then how this one is more affected by some whether it's neighbors, neighborhood, proximity to the beach as you're walking or driving. How close are you to the major profit drivers, which still Miramar is a beach community.
Yep. Cool. So it's not oceanfront. It's on beach side though, right? So there's no crossing the street. It's pretty much a private access to, although it's not a private, there's no deeded entrance. There's nowhere for locals or anybody from public to go and park their car there. It just doesn't exist. So it's pretty much a private beach. Probably about, I don't know, 1,000 yards to the beach.
Yeah.
Right. Neighbors, like I said, usually it's a parking thing that goes on, and it happens to me too. People are parked in my spots. Usually, what happens is that someone parks in my spot, so my people park in another spot, and then those people get home and it just snowballs, right?
Yeah.
So the HOA president, who I have become kind of friendly with, is pretty helpful in dealing with, situations like that. They shoot out an email to everybody, hey, do you mind moving your car? Most of the people are patient about it. So, yeah, it's been good. Proximity to the beach, definitely, right? Like it's not oceanfront. So I'm finding that to be a little bit of a drawback right now. Trying to figure out ways to, I don't want to say combat that, but to make the property more attractive. And one of the things we went out and did, and it's big in Miramar and Destin Beach, not in Myrtle Beach, but in Destin, in that area, is having beach chairs and umbrellas set up for the guests. So when they walk out to the beach, their chairs are already set up for them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a huge amenity for them.
And that's an outside service that you guys contracted for, right? Yeah. And that is, and it's understanding those local kind of nuances in the market. And that is a huge deal out there is and there's companies that will go out and set your beach chairs and your umbrellas up and having it ready for you. So you just walk down to the beach and then they take it down at the end of the day. It's a service you can provide. And my first time visiting Destin, I didn't realize that. I also didn't realize that there's a lot of properties that you can't even really get to the beach to. It's really tough. You have to go to public beach access, and though you're really close to the beach, somebody else has that deed to beach access, and I got to get in the car and drive somewhere to go to public access, and it's crowded, and it's understanding the nuances in those markets. And I'm assuming you kind of knew that as you were going through the acquisition and looking at some of the, like, how to access the beach.
Correct. I did. But when you talk about nuances, that's a big town where a lot of people, 30A, they have golf carts, right?
Yes.
I didn't know, but my property cannot have golf carts, and not because the townhouse doesn't allow it, because you can't drive on the sidewalks. There's certain roads you can't drive to. So you couldn't drive on the sidewalk to get to 30A to get you down to the beach. So it's null. But and when we first went in there, I was like, oh, cool. We'll rent a golf cart. People will be able to use that. So yeah, those little nuances, right? You catch some of them, but other ones you just, I wasn't aware until later on.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
People ask and I just tell them, no, sorry. I just exactly what I told you.
Yeah. And hopefully you lean into, you shouldn't need one, right? You're like, hey, listen, you're going to be walking right to the beach. Can't drive there anyways. There's no parking. And so, we'll have everything set up for you. Umbrellas, chairs. You don't have to haul that back and forth. Grab your towels and head down, right?
Yeah, and people might say, one person said, hey, we really wanted to take a ride on 30A. I don't know if you don't allow that there. And I'm like, hey, you know what? If you just make 2 turns right off the main street over there, there's a great golf cart rental place that has direct access to 30A. So you can drive there, park your car, and go take a ride on 30A, because it is pretty cool.
Yeah, right. And then this one also being a townhome, does it have shared amenities as far as pools, things like that, or do you have individual?
There's a pool, which is a shared amenity. We're on the end unit, so we have a little bit more, I don't want to say space, but there's a little more privacy, right? Because we're on the end that's not close to where the beach is. So when everyone's coming out of their units, they're walking towards the beach. No one's coming near my end. So we're planning on doing some cool stuff out there. I don't know if we're working on maybe a hot tub or putting a fire pit over there or something like that. And the HOA is pretty lenient. Usually the HOAs are pretty strict. This particular one happens to be lenient, and they're like, yeah, if you want to put a fire pit, or, hot tubs are okay. So yeah, so there's shared amenities, not a lot of amenities though, right? Just the pool is shared.
And this leads to that, the reason you would add fire pits, hot tubs is, my guess is, we see a slowdown in the shoulder season, right? And the other one, like you said, the first Condo Tails, it's got the water park, it's got the beach, it's got things to keep people happy year round. Miramar is a very seasonal market, and my guess is the reason we're considering that is to say, okay, listen, we're seeing a slowdown in the shoulder season. Like right now, this time of year, the beachgoers are kind of going away. How can we attract those people that still want to come and enjoy that area, but give them some amenities that they can enjoy in a little cooler weather?
Yep, absolutely. Why we're looking to do that. We recently added pets to be allowed, people to allow dogs at the condo. So we thought that would drive occupancy a little bit. It started to pick up. We did that in in the house in Myrtle too. Condo Tail doesn't allow dogs, so that
Yeah.
was null. But it was a pretty relatively inexpensive, right? It's not
Yeah.
$10,000 for a hot tub,
Right.
right? So it was pretty easy to buy dog cages, leashes, dog bowls. We still, I'm having photographer come out to take pictures of that stuff soon. Um, to
Yeah.
add onto there. But yeah, that's definitely adding some sort of a little bit, you think Florida, but it gets cold in Florida, right?
Yeah.
So it like
It
dies
does.
down a little. Well, if people can hop into a hot tub or jump outside to a fire pit, yeah, that's something that I think would be attractive.
Yeah. What about, have you been doing the pets long enough to be able to judge whether that helped increase occupancy at all?
It's increased in Myrtle Beach. I do think that it's increased in Miramar Beach, but it's been a little bit slow going with that. I'm not sure
Hmm.
why. I think those pictures of the
Will make a difference. Yeah.
right of the experiential photos, like where your dog is going to sleep, and you put it in the listing. We provide and I list all that stuff, but sometimes people don't read everything, right? If they
Yeah.
can
Most
pictures,
of the time they don't. You've got to
yeah, pictures
articulate it
tell
in
the
the
story.
photos. Yeah.
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 So, yeah, the past couple guests have had dogs, and overall, no problem.
Good, good. Yeah, awesome. So let's roll into which I know Miramar and Myrtle Beach house was kind of purchased around the same time. Talk to me a little bit about the house and the amenities it has, and then the kind of the pros and cons of that asset class as much as you see it comparatively speaking to the others.
Yep. So the house is a different animal. It's 5 bedrooms, sleeps 14 people, has a private pool in the backyard, and an elevator. In Myrtle Beach, they call it Rose, right? So it's third row. It's not ocean front.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a beautiful house. Again, with all the properties, we went out and used O to O and decorated. It didn't do anything too crazy. The craziest thing we did was the condo hotel. We redid the floor. That was the most expensive, right?
yeah,
Like thing that we did. So nothing nuts. And yeah, the pool is cool. That's a different amenity to have that private pool, Sean. But the
yeah.
guest this weekend put the pool heater up to 94 degrees, right? Like
Ooh,
she didn't think it was hot
they,
enough, so
they made it a hot tub.
oh yeah, they popped the cover off and made it a hot tub. So
Yeah,
like yeah, there's drawbacks to every kind of amenity that you have. Yeah,
yeah,
I think another drawback is for me that I'm seeing is that it's third row and not front row, right? So I was looking to get a higher average nightly rate, and I think that although the occupancy is there, the average nightly rate is not there. And I think that a golf cart might add to that.
right, right.
So we're considering that. We're also considering again the same kinds of things in Miramar. We're considering a hot tub and um, a hot tub and a fire pit. We're also I'm big into pickleball, so I am finding out Myrtle Beach is great for golf, right? Everyone knows
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
There's great pickleball courts that are like a mile from the road from me. So this Friday, I have a photographer coming out. He's going to take experiential photos of the dog items that we have and some drone photos of distance to pickleball courts, golf
Nice.
courses. Just upgrade the listing a little bit.
Yeah, and again, what you're upgrading it to articulate the experience and what people can do. And again, this time of year especially, it's a really nice temperature to go be playing pickleball, right? It's a little cooler. You're not dying of heat and humidity. You're just it's a little bit nicer. And I think you're really smart with, I mean, proximity always makes a big difference. And when you start buying single family homes, proximity usually suffers a little bit because the ones that are front row versus third row, those properties cost a lot more, right? They command a higher nightly rate, is what you're seeing though as well. And so you're saying, okay, what can we do to maybe increase our nightly rate and lean into our proximity and make that proximity not as big of a deal? I think the golf cart is a really good amenity, honestly, because now you're saying, okay, we're third row, it's pretty close, a little bit farther than maybe people like to walk. But if you have a really fun way for them to get to the beach and the golf cart works, and like a little bit different than Miramar where they actually have access to drive the golf cart, could be a big difference. And even for the pickleball, driving a mile on the golf cart's funner than jumping in the car.
For sure. And I do think that the golf cart coupled with the being able to hold dogs, to have dogs at the house is going to
Yeah.
be huge over over the summer months, May. They're just, I think when we did the analysis of it, Sean, we came out and figured out that we were knocking out like 50% of the competition by allowing dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like in my particular
Yes.
area. So
Yeah.
now, to further that, right now you get to the beach real quick if you have that golf cart, and I allow dogs, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully that'll help out too.
Yeah. Speak to me. We haven't talked a lot about this, but speak to me about your experience, because I always say that the smaller properties have a lot less seasonality. It's a lot easier to fill in those gap days and those off-season last-minute bookings versus a larger property, and you have a mix of both. Would you find that to be true? Do you feel like that's the larger property is affected by seasonality a little bit more, and you have to do a little bit more to keep that one full?
Yeah, so I do agree with you, except the dogs, allowing the dogs has really,
Has
I'm
made a big
seeing
difference.
my last minute bookings really hop up. I'm discounting it too, right? Like I'm
Right.
not looking to get $1,000 a night like we are in the summer, so it's discounted. But yeah, it's filling those voids a little bit easier. But also in the bigger house, right? Like people will jump on a Friday or Saturday, right? Or
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes they're not taking those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So yeah, sometimes. But again, I'm hoping that the pets, and then on top of it, the golf cart and the other things that we're doing will hop that occupancy up a little bit in the shoulder season dead time.
Nice. Yeah. And I think, like you said, the analysis looking at especially on the Myrtle Beach property, saying, hey, you eliminate 50% of the competition the minute you allowed pets. That's a big deal, right? That's a huge deal. And you're seeing the effects of that, which is great. Are you, because I get this asked all the time, and I always say it depends. I own condos, I own single family homes, I own townhomes, I own a mix of different products in different areas. Do you, now that you've owned, one of each, do you lean toward, like, if you were going to buy a fourth property, would you say, I want to stick with the single family, I want to stick with the condos, I want to stick with the townhome, or does it matter? Do you feel like it matters and it just kind of depends on the market?
I don't know what I would do. That's a great question. I like having the single family home, but it's a big house, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff. And if all this things happen, right? So if one thing breaks, right, like sometimes a few things break at the same time. Now you're dealing with a much bigger house. Like in one weekend, the air conditioning went, the elevator wasn't
Yeah.
working, right? Like I had a guest that had an issue with something that was not cleaned properly. There's just more
Right.
that can go wrong with the bigger house, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would consider all three, right? Like
Yeah.
still, of the condo and the townhouse, right? Which are they're similar in that they're not
Yeah.
single families. The condo tel for me is better because the dealing with neighbors, and it's not awful, like I said, but
Yeah.
especially in a small community, right? Like so. There's 9 unit owners. Everyone has a voice, and not everyone. Some people are going there to spend time with their family for the whole summer. I'm really not. It's really just an investment
Exactly.
property.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that, the answer. I mean, that's how I answer it too. It's like, I don't know, I like all of them. I buy all of them, and it really depends on the situation. They all have pros and cons. Overall, the longer you hold them, the single family probably has the more upside as far as appreciation, but it also has arguably more headaches along the way while you own it, right? Because it's a full property, single family. And so that's not always the reason you would stick with single family, but it's a great answer. And I love that this conversation was kind of revolved around that, because it's such a common question that people have. They think one is way better than the other. And I always tell them it's really not. There's like I said, pros and cons of both, or all three different options. And you just got to look at what works for your situation at the time and that market and everything else. And so, Adam, at the end of like all of these conversations, I always like to ask that one final question of, if you could go back and give yourself some advice, the lessons learned, going into the fourth property, like what piece of advice would you give yourself if you could get it before you started? Is there something that comes to mind that you could tell yourself that, yeah, I wish I would have known this, or I wish I would have done this?
Yeah, it's a good question for sure. Do your homework, right? So as I said, like there's certain things that you find out on the fly that you think are, hey, this property, oh, golf carts. No golf carts, right? You need to do your homework on that, the acquisition, on what you think your average nightly rate is going to be, and really tune that in. And yeah, just get started, right? Go
Yeah.
buy an investment property of some sort, and you know,
Yeah.
get
I
going.
love it. Yeah, I love it. And just get started, do it sooner rather than later is always, it's by far the most common piece of advice. But then that first piece of advice of saying, do the homework, run the numbers, make sure you're really getting really diligent about trying to peel back the layers of the onion about your market, about the properties, about what's going on there. And because every little market has those nuances that we talked about, and making sure that you're doing your homework to get educated on that before you make a huge investment decision can make life a little bit easier as you're navigating down the road, because there's plenty of things you're going to have to navigate along the way anyways. And surprises are never fun, right? And especially surprises you can't change.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome, Adam. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate it. These conversations are so valuable to so many people. I know that you listening, we always appreciate your time as well. And I always say these are my favorite episodes when I get to talk to other short-term rental investors that are in the game. I always learn a lot from them. As long as we've been doing it, I pull nuggets of information out of every one of these conversations. I know you guys do as listeners as well, because you tell me all the time in comments and let us know. So we appreciate you spending your time with us. At the end of every episode, I always ask you two favors. First one is, if you like this show and you know somebody else would like to be a part of these conversations, share the show. Those things help us a lot. We don't run ads, sponsorships, promote the show any other way than you guys just sharing it organically. So if you have somebody that wants to be a part of these conversations, walking into the short-term rental game with their eyes wide open, that's our number one goal. Share the show. If you have more than 30 seconds, like it, review it, subscribe on whatever channel you're watching or listening on. And the final, most important piece of advice and challenge that I leave you at the end of every episode is to pick that one thing you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website?
Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.